All right, we're on day 2, and today we're going to continue our prep work for this restoration of this Hobie 16, and we're going to focus on drilling out some holes to start drying out this area where we have delamination. So delamination, as a quick explanation, is you have your top layer of fiberglass on the outside, and then immediately under it, glued to it, is a layer of foam core or some kind of honeycomb structure. And then on the bottom is another layer of fiberglass, and that's what gives it its structural rigidity. So what's happened is, since it's from 1985, whether the glue just degraded over the decades or a lot of stress from sailing, that glue has failed, and now the layer of foam core and the layer of fiberglass have separated, and so there's a little bit of a void. And so you can hear it. It shouldn't be crunching like that, and it's real soft right here. And if we continue to sail without repairing it, that'd be a lot of stress, especially when we have the sail up and it's pulling on the stays and we're in high winds. That's a lot of stress on the hull, and so you'll get cracks, then you get more chances for water intrusion, which further degrades the foam core, and it'll ruin the boat. And I've heard horror stories from Hobie forums that people have been out in rough weather and they've actually snapped their hulls. So it's important that we try to repair this. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to identify the area of the void, and then we're going to drill out holes, not all the way through both layers of fiberglass, but just this top one, so we can come back later and fill in epoxy resin to fill that void and to reseal that void between the foam cores and the fiberglass. So that'll be today's project. All right, first we're going to try to find out where the delaminate's happening, and I've already kind of scoped this out, but I want to show off the method for doing this, and it's an exact science. It's the tried and true method of the quarter tap test. So you'll hear it sounds pretty high pitched and solid, and as we move forward, you're going to hear it start to get deeper and more hollow. Right there. And it starts to get higher again up here. So that's where we know there's a void, and in between that space is where we're going to be drilling most of our holes. We'll go a little bit further out just to ensure that we have full coverage, because if it's good here and we just drill a couple holes, the voids will only be in those holes, and when we go back with the epoxy resin, it'll fill those back up, so no damage there. All right, so as you've seen, I just kind of marked out where I'm going to drill. I did it about 2-inch intervals. I don't want to do it any closer because I don't want that many holes in this good fiberglass. I started to kind of freehand it a little bit where it tapers off. So next we're going to start drilling. And what I want to be very careful of, I mentioned it earlier, is not punching through both layers of that fiberglass and that foam core. Because if I do, then it's just going to be a hole into the middle of the hull. And when I go to fill in that epoxy resin, it's just going to drip through. So I just want to pierce this top layer of fiberglass so that epoxy resin catches and spreads out in whatever void, and then it hardens and it forms that bond. And so to do that, to make sure that I don't punch through, I've gotten this socket here from my ratchet set, and it's hollow, and I'm just going to place it over, and there's enough space that it'll drill, and it just exposes the tip a little bit. And if I don't get through on this first drill, I'm just going to loosen this, and I'm going to extend the bit out just a tiny bit until I punch through. And so I'll get rigged up, and then we'll start doing that. So I've done a couple back here, especially where it's good. This part is a little soft, but it's not crinkly. And I punched to the top, and the foam core is right there. And I took this little Q pen I got, and I pushed it through, and I'm hitting the bottom layer of fiberglass. So I don't know if it's as widespread as I thought. It's a little crunchy up here. So we're gonna go right to the problem area. right around here and see what we got. All right, and I'm seeing foam core right at the top, which makes me think the delaminate is happening at that bottom layer under the foam core. And I know it's subtle, but I can get this little punch in just a little further than I can back here. So I think it's just a narrow void up here. So I'm still going to drill out probably most of this area. I don't know if I'm going to go as far back as this one. We'll see. But it's pretty good that the void isn't very, very thick. So we'll take a lot of epoxy resin to patch this up. So I just finished drilling out all the holes. I did most of them. I left a couple without because it actually felt pretty good, and you know I want to avoid destroying as much good fiberglass as I can. But I think it came out pretty well. This area right here is the worst spot, and you can tell I'll push on the backing on one of these, and maybe we'll see a little dust fly out here. I'll move this closer real quick. So you can kind of hear it. The whole back layer of fiberglass is delaminated, and when I'm pushing on it, it's sucking air in all these holes, and then when I let go of it, it forces all of it out. That's why you're seeing all that dust. So we'll take the tape off. I'll come vacuum all this up, and then we'll let this dry out here for another couple months until it's warm enough for the epoxy resin to set, and then we'll come in with a syringe. We'll fill this in, and it'll fill that void and bond that fiberglass back to the foam core.